Hi everyone, my name is Nicole Dutton. I am the Chair of Natural Sciences and the President of our Faculty Teaching and Learning Caucus. I was asked to just walk through my scheduling process and how I approach course scheduling for our annual review of the schedule. So that's what I'm going to do today. So first of all, if you are new to course scheduling, you would find the course scheduling information here in your shared drives. And when you go to shared drives, you can find course scheduling, and that's how I got here. In course scheduling, I find the most useful document is this links document. So if we open this up, this is going to give you the links to all of the really important things that you need to have access to while you are scheduling. So looking here, there's information on the annual scheduling meeting, calendars, resources and timelines, communication and collaboration, emails sent, and all sorts of good stuff. And there's a few things in here that I'll point out as I'm going through here. When I approach scheduling, the first thing I do is I evaluate data. So year-round, every time that I schedule my sections, I always collect the data on how many students actually enrolled. And I do this every year on a rolling 3-year period. Every 3 years, I do an average of the enrollment, and then I take that average enrollment, divide it by the total capacity for the courses to see how many sections of each course I should be scheduling. So for example, here for 806-105, which is our Principles of Animal Biology, in summer it only had 3 students, summer of 2022, then it had 0, then it had 0, an average of 1, so it was recommended to stop offering that section in the summer. If we look at our Principles of Sustainability course here, we can see that we've had consistent enrollment for 3 years, so it's recommended to continue to offer one of those sections in the summer. So dividing by the total capacity of the course, it's recommended to continue to offer that. So looking at the data really guides me on how many sections I need. In general studies, we offer sections as prerequisites for a lot of our program courses. So we got to make sure we have enough sections, but not too many where we're going to not meet that threshold of enrollment that we're looking for to run the classes. Now, in the sciences, we did make a major change where we started offering a lot more face-to-face sections. So I collected that data in a separate kind of 3-year enrollment data tab. So just more ways that I kind of keep track of this, and then we'll see where those face-to-face sections end up after trying to offer them multiple summers in a row or falls and springs in a row. Some other data that I collected is looking at the face-to-face section, since we are starting to increase the number of face-to-face offerings. When I increased the number of face-to-face offerings in the summer, we ended up only getting a percentage of seats occupied at 42%. So out of all the sections that we had about 42% of the seats occupied, which is pretty low. Science usually is right around the 80% of our seats are filled, if not higher. As you can see for fall, when I collected the same data, we had right around an 84 or 83.58% seats occupied. So just based on collecting this data, it does seem like our face-to-face course offerings are much more popular in the fall versus in the summer. There are a couple sections, like individual sections, that had pretty good enrollment, so I'm going to try running these again as face-to-face in the summer. But other than that, the majority of the rest of these are going to be converted to hybrid, because students tend to prefer our hybrid offerings in the summer. So the point of this is just looking at data before you make any decisions about scheduling. So I am constantly and year-round collecting data, and I usually start pulling final enrollment numbers about 2 to 3 weeks into the semester, because students will kind of add last minute or drop a class last minute, but by the 3rd week we've got a pretty solid idea of how many students are going to stick with the class and stay in it. So that's when I kind of pull my numbers for final enrollment. In addition to doing this, I also generate the schedule for my faculty as I'm creating it, so that they have constant access to see exactly what courses they're going to be scheduled, so that as I'm creating the schedule, they can see it being created in real time and see what courses they're going to be teaching for the next academic year. while I'm building that schedule, I ask my faculty to be reviewing that and let me know if there's anything that they would like changed or anything that's questionable or anything they'd like to comment on during that period, so that it's kind of a collaborative approach to scheduling. Other sources of data, so depending on what your program area is, you may have different data points that you need to look at. So capacity versus enrollment for the past couple years is here. Canceled and DS sections are something that you would look at. If a class is continuously canceled and we keep rolling it over and offering it, that's not a really good approach. So canceled sections in the new process are not going to be rolled over for next academic year. DS sections should also be eliminated. So those sections that don't reach the 15 to run or the 75% capacity to run, we would want to look at those of why they're not reaching the capacity we need them to try to reduce or eliminate our directed study sections. As a reminder, if the course has 2 to 5 students enrolled, it would be a DS5. If it 1 to 5 would be a DS5. 6 to 9 would be a DS9, and then anything over that would either run full or cancel based on your program specific guidelines. So data is something you should start off by looking at. Now, I always reflect on how many sections do I need, and then once I figure out how many sections do I need, I look at, are there any sections that canceled or ran as DS for a particular reason? So maybe it was scheduled at a weird time, or maybe when I scheduled it, it conflicted with an academic block. It's pretty rare that that would happen, but maybe that happened. So looking at the data really does help. So then what I do is I go into Infosylum. So I get to it by just Googling OneLogin. I'm just going to log in real quick. And once you're in your OneLogin, you can go into Infosylum. And I'm going to go into Spring 2026 and go into the sections here. So when I look at the course sections, these are all of the sections that have been scheduled. And what I want to do is look at what's here first. So I look at all these sections and then I compare to my data and say, are there any sections that I need to get rid of or modify in a major way? So those DS sections that maybe I think the time needs to be changed so that it will run to be a better time, or if there's just too many sections of one type of modality, then I would go in and try to make the change to that section. So how to make those changes, if we go back to this course scheduling document here, you can see how to make those changes to add a section, change a section, remove or cancel sections. All of those are listed here. If I want to make a change to a section, clicking on that section takes me to a window where I can put in requests, and then I can make requests based on that section. So that's just under sections, and then I can find this little window here and make requests. Now, since this is spring 2026, I don't have access to actually edit the schedule, just make recommendations of changes after the scheduling period has closed. So it's going to look a little different for spring of 2026 than if I were to be starting a brand new section. When I go to add a section, I have to make sure that it aligns with the course scheduling blocks, and also the section attributes have to be correct. So there's a couple different documents that I look at. The first one is up here. Themes. Here we go. Section numbering and attributes. So if we look at this, we can see how the section would be laid out. So we would do 806 which is for science, and then it would be the course number. So if I'm talking about like a general EMP course, it would be 177. And then the last 4 digits are dependent on this grid here. So whether it's summer, fall, or spring, it would be, if we're scheduling for summer, it would be 1. Then you would put the location based on here. So if it's a Kenosha section, I would put K. And then if it was a traditional section, I would put 1. And then if it's a daytime, I would put the appropriate letter based on how many sections are scheduled previously. So if it's the first section ever of general EMP, then I would put an A section if it's a daytime, or I would put a number 1 if it's an evening section. So 806, 177, 1K, 1A would be anticipated to be a summer Kenosha section. That's a traditional face-to-face section. It's offered during the day. Then I would go to my start time grid. So this start time grid shows you all of the allowable start times for day classes and evening classes. So if I have a 2-hour class, these are the only possible options for starting the class if it's a 2-hour long class. So these are my daytime options, so I would have to pick one of these start times, and then the end time would obviously be just 2 hours after that. So we always want to make sure that the section attributes are correct when you're creating the new section number, and then look at the start time grid to make sure that it's within the allowable time. The other thing I have to do is I have to schedule around the lab space, because lab spaces are the limiting factor when scheduling for sciences. So I can't have more than 1 lab in the room at the same time, so that's kind of a room assignment consideration. The other thing I take into consideration is which faculty are going to be teaching the section. So I always try to create a schedule to where 100% of the sections are taught by my full-time faculty. I don't use a lot of adjuncts in science, which is eventually going to change. We're going to be using more and more adjuncts, but I do have to have someone in mind when I'm creating the schedule to make sure that they're capable of teaching all the sections that I would like them to teach. The next thing that I have to take into consideration is the academic blocks of the programs that my gen ed courses serve as prerequisites for. Now, a lot of my science courses are also offered online, so that kind of alleviates some of the pressure. If a student can't come during a certain day or time, then they can take the online section. But if they do want to take an in-person lab experience, I can always go back to this document and take a look at what programs require my courses. So just looking through here, there's information on like the conflict-free academic blocks and creating those blocks. In here, there is the cross-reference report. I'm just trying to find it. So the cross-reference report gives you the list of all of the programs that require your courses as general education. I know I saw it in here. Oh, there it is. Cross-reference report. So the cross-reference report, again, shows you if I have, go down to 806. And overshot it a little bit. So 806, 177, for example, all of these listed here are required by all of these different programs. So for all these different programs, I would have to make sure if I am scheduling a particular 806, 177 course that I'm scheduling around the program courses or giving students additional options on the particular campuses they need for these particular programs. Program information can also be found in here, so all of the information that you need regarding programs can be found in these documents here. Program info right here, 2627, so you can see like what campus, whether it's a daytime or an evening program, and all that kind of stuff. So those are considerations that I have to think about when I'm creating my schedule. Once I'm in InfoSilum, and I go through here and I mark any of the sections that need to be deleted, change any of the sections that I need to change, the last thing that I do is a final review. So for this final review, I make sure that the class capacity is correct for the room. So for example, in Elkhorn, I have a capacity of 20. Online, asynchronous, we can go up to 25. For my Racine physics lab, it's only 16. So depending on where it's located and what classroom I'm assigning to it, I have to make sure that that's correct. The other thing I have to make sure is that the days, start times and end times make sense. Then I review the start and end dates. Make sure the campus aligns with what I put for the section number, and then the room number makes sense. I also go in and assign faculty to the courses, which faculty should pretty much be assigned before you finish your scheduling. So all of this information about the individual sections can be found under sections. Now in science, we do have an A component and a B component. So the A is scheduled in a particular way and the B is scheduled in a particular way. So our labs have to be in a lab space. The A component lecture, typically online or in a lecture room space. Sometimes we will schedule lectures in the lab space, sometimes not. So just kind of going through there and making sure that those A components make sense where they're at, and that the B components are definitely in a lab, or if they're an online lab, then they would be async online. Once all of my change requests are done, I email my scheduling specialist and let them know, and I CC Teresa on that and my dean and let them know that my scheduling is done. And then I always ask for my scheduling specialist to let me know when they're done processing all of the changes that I have requested. Once that's done, I go in and I review everything one last time to make sure what's remaining is accurate. And I go through step by step in order, making sure that all of the information that's here is correct. And once that's done, it gets my stamp of approval. The schedule has already been created for my faculty in my workload tracking document, so they have access to this and they can see their exact schedules. So I let them know, hey, schedule is done, and it's good to go forward with your review. Letting the faculty watch it be created as it's being created has helped me catch errors that have popped up, has helped me collaborate with them, get their feedback and input, and they have different ideas of what students need. And you know, we're all trying to serve the students the best we can, so that's basically how I approach scheduling. Again, as a review, data evaluation is first. You got to make sure that you're scheduling the right number of sections at the right days and times. And if there's a section that's not running, you have to think about why and maybe make some changes to that section based on what you might find out about popular dates, times, or conflicts with their program courses. You collaborate with outside people. You can always reach out to the advisors who advise for these programs and get their feedback, because they talk to students also, so they're a good source of information there. Then there's some resources that you need that are provided in this links document, which is kind of your one-stop shop for everything that you could need related to course scheduling. Then InfoSilum Academic. Once you get in here, you can start looking through your sections, what's there, start putting in your requests for changes just by clicking on like the section number and then putting in this little request bubble here and then filling out the necessary information and submitting it. Then once all of your requests are done, you send an email saying, hey, I'm done with my schedule review. Please let me know when you're done making the updates so that I can have a final review. Once I get that email that they have done all of their updates, then I do my final review, making sure everything looks correct and makes sense one last time. That time frame in between my first glance at it and my last glance at it also kind of helps me reset. So I've been away from the schedule for a little while. It helps me just take a fresh look at the schedule to make sure everything is in alignment, and then we're good to go once the schedule is finalized. So if you have any questions about anything in particular, your scheduling specialist can definitely help you. I just wanted to put this together to give you an idea of my approach. Scheduling is something that I think about year round. I collect data of enrollment year round, and I always reach out to advisors, reach out to faculty, anytime that I see that there's low enrollment sections, to try to see what can we do to maybe change the section, day, time, maybe even campus location, to get those sections to run. And by collecting data continuously, it really gives me a good handle on what we need so that I schedule the appropriate number of sections. Thanks for listening, everyone. Hope you have a great semester.